Here's Brody Brazil.
I'll call this the worst Sharks stat of the season, but there's probably a few different ways to put it. Maybe it's the most frustrating stat of their campaign thus far. This comes from Darren Stevens, our official graphics and statistician expert on the Sharks broadcast with NBC Sports California. Tweeted this out after the game on Monday. The Sharks allowed 2 goals today in the first 30 seconds of periods and have allowed 6 such goals this season, which is the most in the NHL among all the 31 other teams. San Jose also allowed 1 in the final 10 seconds of regulation. Yeah, sent that one to overtime. They have allowed 14 in the final minutes of periods, 4th most in the NHL. So first 30 seconds, they lead the league in goals allowed. Final minutes of periods, they're 4th most in the NHL. And I would cringe to look at who those other teams are. I would imagine Chicago, Arizona, Columbus, Anaheim, teams just like the Sharks in the very bottom of the standings. Now, it's hard to really quantify how this happens, why this happens, how to fix this, how to get away from this. The beginning of periods, like you would think, that's the most organized, rested, structured, focused that a team could be. They've just come out of the room. They've just done everything they need to. Being caught off guard, I've got to say, is unfortunately a staple of the Sharks team this season. There's been a lot of games, and first 30 seconds of periods, I feel like there's been most of those scored on the Sharks in the first 30 seconds of games, very first shift or 2 or whatever. It happens quick, and it happens often that a lot of teams that are opposing them strike first. Now, as for the final minute of regulation, that's also kind of another head scratcher for me, in a sense that all you have to do a lot of times is preserve your lead or preserve what you've done in a period. It's really not usually a team adding on or piling on at the end. I've got to tell you, of those 14 in final minutes of periods, I don't even need the stats. I just know this from the eye test. Most oftentimes, I would bet of those 14, 10 or 11 is the opposition either making it now a 1-goal game or tying the game or taking a lead in the game with that goal in the final minute of the period. It feels like teams are doing unbelievable damage against the Sharks in those final minutes. Literally the final minute. Now, how do you get away from that either, right? Isn't that the time where the coaching staff is maybe putting out some of the best lines and some of the most favorable matchups and trying to get the players that can secure at least where the team is at scoreboard-wise going into the next break, into the next intermission? Aren't you trying to just tighten up and say, hey, let's not give anything away here. Let's manage this. Let's massage this out so that we go into the room with the lead. We'll hit the reset button. We'll go from there. So this is telling. This is something that doesn't appear on the stat sheet. You can go top to bottom and look at plus minus and points and shot percentage, anything else. You could go into the advanced metrics if you want to. But this stat right here on both ends of periods, the early goals, the late goals, and really what do they count for differently? A goal is a goal, whether it's 1 second in or 1 second left, or whether it's precisely 10 minutes into a 20-minute period of hockey. It doesn't matter. On the scoreboard, they all count the same. But they don't feel the same, and they don't lose momentum the same as these early and late goals. These are the ones that the team has been giving up that just, and I'm not saying this as a knock to individuals or the group or certainly the coaching staff, but this has been an area of weakness for this team this season that I wish, of all the things that they could get away from, this would be one right here, which would make even the rough losses a lot easier to digest, like the shootout loss to New Jersey, like this game that Darren was talking about here. You don't allow that goal with 10 seconds left. The Devils don't tie it. There's no overtime. There's no shootout. You just got the 2 points and they got none. Instead, we saw what happened. So they could help the Sharks in a lot of ways besides just ultimate wins and losses in terms of emotions and trajectory of this season. So let me know what you think about that stat and everything else in the comments section below.